The world has become more than half urban in the last decade. Over 90% of urban growth is now occurring in the developing world. 1 billion people now live in city slums worldwide, and nearly 2 billion new urban residents are anticipated in the next 20 years. Urban populations in South Asia and Africa are expected to double during this period.
Productivity, growth, job creation in most developing countries is moving from rural areas to urban areas. There's a shift from agriculture to manufacturing and services growth, and this is quite obvious in countries like China, India, and I think now increasingly in Africa.
Much of this urban growth now occurs in medium and small-sized cities, with about 53% of the world's urban population residing in cities of 500,000 or less. Such key urban developments are the focus of the World Bank's new urban and local government strategy.
What is important about the new World Bank urban strategy is that it calls for a paradigm shift. Instead of thinking of urbanization as something that is bad and something that needs to be resisted, if managed properly, urbanization is extremely important. It drives growth, it creates jobs, it reduces poverty.
The new urban strategy calls for a more proactive response. Firstly, from national governments, they need to think more strategically about how their countries are urbanizing.
This new transit system in Lagos, Nigeria, represents the sort of proactive, poverty-reducing policies and partnerships the bank's new urban strategy supports. 17 million people live in Lagos, and in response to the millions on the road there each day, the government partnered with the private sector to create the Bus Rapid Transit, a system providing better busing and roads. Now, 220,000 paying customers are using Lagos's new transit system, which employs over 1,000 people directly and about 500,000 indirectly.
I've been enjoying it. It has eased out the problem of coming from home, going to work, getting to work on time.
The World Bank's new urban strategy assesses the impact of such urban interventions and policies that have worked in the past or faltered. The strategy provides insights about what's needed now and in the future.
Today, cities consume 70% of the world energy production. They also contribute to more than 70% of the green gas emissions. So the urban form, density, energy efficiency become absolutely crucial for sustainable cities.
We've had a demographic explosion in Middle East countries, and the stress in urban areas is quite tremendous.
Over 30 years ago, when the bank began in the urban sector, it was largely focused on settlements, on sites and service development. Over the years, I think what we've learned is there are a set of broader issues in the urban sector that we have to deal with. In Vietnam, the urban areas are growing by 1 million people a year, and the ability to work effectively both in the major cities, but now increasingly in secondary cities as well, is a challenge for the region that we're giving priority to.
What we found in the World Development Report is that when you look at urbanization today, it's actually different in many ways from what was experienced by the countries that have already developed. But it also has some similarities, and there are two of them that are especially important. The first one is that urbanization is over by the time countries reach middle income. The second is that no country actually gets to high income without also urbanizing.
We have been arguing that the bank today is no longer only a generator of knowledge. It has to be a catalyst for knowledge. It has to bring the knowledge from all other parts. When I'm taking, for instance, the example of Singapore, it is a country which is relying basically on rainwater to supply water to its citizens for something like 50%. And finally, it's a city which has eradicated all its slums while improving productivity of the city.
Assisting countries in facing such critical urban pressures is the new strategy's Urbanization Review, an analytical tool examining and advising national governments with the help of other partners.
The urban strategy provides an excellent opportunity for the Cities Alliance and its members now to engage much more directly with the bank's work program. And this is, I think, in main through, firstly, the welcome edition of the Urbanization Review as a tool. This provides a very tangible diagnostic method for governments to understand the nature of the problem with which they are dealing.
Sharpening the bank's urban business lines is another focus of the new strategy, including enabling city economies, encouraging progressive urban land and housing markets, and promoting a safe and sustainable urban environment.
What we want to see in our strategy is that we're actually helping drive that investment, both by making cities more livable, making them coherent, attending to the needs of the poorest in those cities, but also putting in place the things that the private sector needs to flourish, whether that's good land markets, it's an open regulatory environment, and the like.
This urban development project in Naga City in the Philippines is showing the multiple desired effects of the bank's new urban strategy. The project joined slum dwellers, local government, NGOs and international donor partners to upgrade homes and install a storm drainage system.
Probably was a good site to test a development mode or a development concept that allows an NGO, LGU, and the community to work together.
The project has attracted new businesses and has increased home and property values. The rising property values can translate into increased local revenues, enabling the city to deliver critical urban services and be more sustainable for generations to come.